Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
Joseph, I'm reading about Russia saying they will not leave unanswered the buildup of NATO military on the border, on its border. What do we think about that, and what's the latest?
Bob, good afternoon from Lviv. It's a sunny day, about 50 degrees. The snow has melted, and we have electricity and heat. Ukrainians are holding on pretty well this winter. Regarding the buildup, whenever Putin talks about NATO, we have to look at what's actually been happening. I mean, NATO has expanded since Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, especially when Finland joined NATO. Finland has an enormous border, thousands of miles long, with Russia. Finland was neutral until Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But because Finland has a long history of aggression from Russia, in fact, the Russians stole part of Finnish territory. I think it was in the late 1930s, early 1940s. And so the Finns have long been wary of Russia. They've continued to train their military to fight in the snow, to fight on skis in case there is a Russian invasion. And it's because of what Russia has done in Ukraine that the Finns ran into the protection of NATO. And I think even sometimes in the West, in the way we speak about it, we speak of NATO expansion as though NATO is some kind of empire that wants to grow. But if you look at the reality, all the countries that have joined NATO in the past decade or so, they want in so that what's happening in Ukraine doesn't happen in their countries. And I think that should be pretty clear. You see that if you're not in NATO, you're not protected, just like Ukraine has not been protected.
I'm curious about this report that Ukraine's top general has issued what appears to be a clear criticism of President Zelensky over difficulties in recruiting new soldiers. What's that all about?
Yeah, this has been it's been a difficult question, I'd say, for even more than a year on the question of mobilization. In the first weeks and months of the full-scale invasion, many people ran to the fight and signed up to fight. And, sort of all of those who, really wanted to go fight have pretty much done so. Everyone else is waiting for that moment when they get called up. And I wouldn't say just waiting. I mean, many people are applying themselves who are not in the military to help, as volunteers, to raise money, to help in any way possible. There are people, of course. I mean, it's a big society. There are people that try to hide and run away from the war and forget about it in different ways. And there's been, there's a Soviet era agency in the Ukrainian military. It's called Viskomat, and they have been in charge of the mobilization. And usually it's these sort of young. Well, it's not even young, all different ages of not even soldiers, but members of this agency that are sort of part of the military. They've not been fighting at the front, and they can go around to anywhere and round people up to fight. And usually that doesn't happen in the big cities. It doesn't happen in Kyiv. It doesn't happen in the center of Lviv. It certainly doesn't happen where there are foreigners present, where might be foreign journalists. It happens, in the villages and at the edges of society, so it does get forgotten. And there's been growing frustration with this agency. And I know many people that have been stopped and briefly detained. One of them was detained and wasn't even allowed to go home. He was on business in a different city of Ukraine and was sent straight to training camp. So many people see this as unjust. And so this has been a difficulty. When President Zelenskiy several months ago, really at the behest of the media that was investigating this and the people that were starting to get frustrated, he removed the leader of the Defense Department, but also removed the regional managers of this recruitment agency. And so there was some sense that this was going to be reformed. But I think on the ground, it looks like it hasn't been reformed yet. And then they also face the pressing need of they're going to need more soldiers, especially if, and this is the big question, if Washington is going to, they can say they're sending 100 billion, 500 billion, whatever, but if they're not going to send the long range weapons that Ukraine needs to hit the Russian bases from which Russians send missiles and send planes and send soldiers. If Ukraine doesn't have have the ability and the permission to hit those places, they're going to have to keep sending soldiers to the front. And this is what Russia wants, is for Ukraine to bleed out. And so it is, but if you don't get the long range weapons, that's what you have to do. And so this is the big concern of debate. I think we also see, we saw that there was a 2-week span, I think in October, where there was the article in Time magazine with President Zelensky, and then a week later with General Zaluzhnyi, who's the commander-in-chief in The Economist. General Zaluzhnyi, according to all the polls that we see here in Ukraine, is by far the most well-loved single person in Ukraine. As I mentioned before, Ukrainians don't tend to sort of idolize political leaders like we do in the West. And so, they tend to criticize all of their political leaders, but there is great affection for Zaluzhnyi. Perhaps some people in President Zelensky's circle, they're politicians, and politicians are always angling, as they do, to try to stay in power. I know that behind the scenes, many politicians want to have an election when it would be scheduled if there was no war in March. But I don't think you could find any politician in the world who, if you had the who would want to have an election if you weren't ready for it, if you had the option. And so there is always that sort of maneuvering among many different political parties in Ukraine. And I think also, the big, as I've been saying for so long, the big news is that Ukraine has been relatively protected these past months, and there's been a window of opportunity. Last winter was like living in the Middle Ages. I really want to underscore that. It was, no power, no electricity, no hot water for most people, many hours of the day, the entire winter. And beyond that, just the terrifying effect of having, in every major city, you wake up every Monday or Tuesday to 5 to 12 missiles, and sometimes hypersonic missiles, just, beating the crap out of your city. That was an incredibly tough winter. And this is not happening now. Ukraine has shown what they can do, and that's why Russia is doing everything it can right now to disguise that fact, to make it look like there's that normal political debates and normal arguments about the progress of the war are some kind of deeply existential sort of infighting, when it's really relatively normal and important to have these debates and discussions. And so I think we have to sort of always be attuned to, remembering that Russia will do everything they can to win. If you look at everything that Putin says and how they're manipulating the stories about a democracy that's trying to hold on in a time of war.
Wow, listening to your description of the relative calm now, it just, I'm sure, makes it so frustrating for you to realize that there's probably not going to be any agreement on aid to Ukraine this year, hopefully early next year. But this would be a great time to take advantage of your situation there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and this would be the time to send the long-range weapons needed to actually, as Ukrainians have done so well. Already they've destroyed several Russian bases that were causing, putting a lot of damage on Ukraine. And this would be the time to do it. And, there are a few voices that are consistent about this, such as former American, one of our top generals, Ben Hodges, and others. But even, as I say, that aid package from Washington, it's not serious. It's a lot of money, but it still is not about, there still is a fear embedded of the idea that Russia would be defeated. And Ukrainians have shown it's possible with the Storm Shadow missiles from the UK. But there is just not a seriousness about this in Washington right now. But on a brighter note, I wanted to share with you a bit of the Christmas cheer from Ukraine. And it's a big deal that for the first time ever, Ukrainians will be celebrating Christmas December 25th. And it's not really the first time ever, but they were on the old calendar that the East used when Pope Gregory switched the calendar in the time of the Renaissance. And when the Soviets came to power with the Bolshevik revolution, they abolished all holidays. And they really were trying to destroy Christmas. And so in eastern Ukraine to this day, and in central Ukraine and Kyiv, people celebrate New Year's. They forgot about Christmas. this is something that's going to hope, people hope will come back. But here in Galicia in Western Ukraine, Christmas is something very dear to the people. And without irony, they sing the songs and they keep these traditions. And so I wanted to share with you this little clip of two Galician women, my friend Ira and one of her friends, singing. They're listening right now, somewhere here in Lviv. But they wanted to share this Ukrainian Christmas carol, Nebo et Zimli, Heaven and Earth. It goes Nebo et Zimli, Angeli Lude, Heaven and Earth, Angels and People. And it's a song of one of the beloved carols of Western Ukraine at Christmas time.
Небо і земля, нині торжествують. Ангели, люди, весело празнують. Христос родився, Бог воплотився, ангели співають, царя витають, поклін віддають, пастирі грають, чудо повідають.
That is a beautiful.
Merry Christmas.
That's a great sound. And the laughter made it even better.
Yeah, we need laughter in these days, and this is precisely, there's no pause on celebrating because this is why these holidays developed in the dark times, thousands of years ago, and it's you feel that right now, and so and it'll be on December 25th, which everyone is handling, 2 weeks earlier than normal, but people are they feel liberated from these old Soviet constrictions.
Hope it stays calm there until tomorrow. Thank you, Joseph.
Until tomorrow. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Єбать.